The 2024 quarterback class was loaded with Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, and Bo Nix, all giving us great fantasy production throughout their short career. We talked through the fantasy expectations for quarterbacks entering their third season on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with the NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today and this week, we're going to go through the players entering their third NFL season. So we went through the rookies last week and did each individual position and discuss what we thought about their careers and their expectations for 2026 as they go into their second season. So this week, we're going to go into those guys going into the third season, starting with quarterbacks today. And that 2024 class was really stacked, it seems like, because a lot of these guys are shining in the NFL, whether it be just good NFL quarterbacks, but also a lot of good fantasy, good production there as well. So let's start with the top two guys in fantasy production. That's Drake Maye and Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was a quarterback 7 on average this year. It was a huge jump from his rookie season, but Ben Johnson seems to have been a fantastic addition for that Bears offense and for Caleb Williams in general. And then with Drake Maye, he finishes as the quarterback 2 on average behind only Josh Allen. Also a big jump from his rookie season and start. So among these two guys, who are you more excited for in 2026? And who are you more likely to draft in terms of their cost? Because right now, Drake Maye is sitting at quarterback 2 costs in consensus rankings, while Caleb Williams is down at quarterback 10.
Yeah, definitely the value says you go after Caleb Williams in relation to where they finished last year, because again, Drake Maye is at his peak. You're not going to get a discount on Drake Maye at all. Right now, he's considered to be in the top tier with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, where actually Jalen Hurts has fallen to the second tier, which is interesting. We'll have another quarterback in his third year in that second tier, which is another twist on this ranking that isn't Caleb Williams. So when you look at Williams and his production, this was very nice. I mean, in the end, it took him a while to get going. This was still a run-centered offense to try to take pressure off him. They had some games where it was a struggle to score points and put up numbers. There was some dysfunction at times for him to get going with the receivers that he would trust the most. Rome Odunze, Colson Loveland, we need them all in the field at the same time with DJ Moore, Luther Burden. DJ Moore has been in a lot of trade rumors, so it doesn't necessarily look like he'll be back, but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily if you limit the weapons to the young guys, Odunze, Burden, and Loveland, and make those the guys. And then you throw in a little Cole Kmet, a little bit of the running backs, throw in some other receivers to make some plays. I think that's all you need from Caleb Williams, because he's going to give you a little bit of rushing, not a big rusher, but he can add just enough there, like 300 yards, 3 to 4 touchdowns, and that's fine. That's what you're looking for with a guy like Caleb Williams. And I think there's a difference, is where can you make up that ground between him and Drake Maye with the running, and then the touchdown pass is going to stay static here for Drake Maye above 30, or Caleb Williams more likely to go above 30, and therefore the rushing comes closer a little bit. So I'm not saying Williams will necessarily outscore Maye, but you're going to get a better value if you draft Williams where he is. He's actually rising at 10, so that you may not be sitting there in the end, but there's not much more to move here, right? You have Josh Allen, Drake Maye, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart. I don't quite get Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence necessarily locked in ahead of Caleb Williams. I don't understand that one a little bit, but that's where he can move, right? He can move into 8, 7, where he is with his value. So right now he's a really good value, but we'll wait and see. And again, this is only scratching the surface of what he can do in the Ben Johnson offense, which turned Jared Goff into an elite fantasy quarterback for a season there without his running ability.
Yeah, I think with Caleb Williams, if his cost stays anywhere near this, he's going to be a guy on most of my teams because I mean, I love Drake Maye, right? But if he's going to be a third round pick and be going around all these top guys, I mean, yeah, he did score a couple more points per game than Caleb Williams this year, but not even a full 2 points per game that he did that. And and maybe with May, maybe there is more upside. I know you said it's his height, but he is going to his second year with Josh McDaniels. Maybe he gets more comfortable with the system. He will probably get better weapons, right? I think guys are going to be more excited to go to New England than they have been in recent years. There's going to be free agents who want to go there finally, so they could finally add good weapons for Drake Maye. And yeah, May did have more rushing yards than Caleb Williams, but it wasn't by that much. I mean, May had 450 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground. Caleb Williams had 388 and 3 touchdowns. So it wasn't actually that big of a difference. And now we get Caleb Williams going into his second season with Ben Johnson. The thing with Williams is he had such better weapons than May. So it's like, all right, he still averaged 2 fewer points per game. So I do think May's ceiling might be higher, or maybe I should say his floor is higher, where he's just a safer pick because he did it without the weapons, right?
Yeah.
Well, Williams had the weapons and he did it his second year, but not his first year. I like both of these guys, but when you're going to talk about the cost difference, that's when it's going to really come, because right now Caleb Williams is going 85th overall as a quarterback 10 in consensus rankings. He's going around guys like Stephon Diggs and Blake Corum and Tony Pollard and Jacoby Myers, while May is going to be going around guys like Garrett Wilson and these top guys like Kyron Williams and Jamison Williams, like guys that can actually help your team greatly that you feel confidence in. That's who Drake Maye is going to go around, and that becomes a lot more scary to take his to pay the cost of him.
Yeah, I think the one thing I always do in drafts is look for the next guy that has the value. And Drake Maye was that value. Then a couple years ago, Jalen Hurts was that value. Just last year, Jayden Daniels, we'll talk about him in a moment, was that value, where he was being undervalued. I got him at a very good discount, and then he ended up being really high up there in the scoring and give me great return on investment. So we're looking for the next guy. We're not looking for the guy that's already done it, because everyone knows the secret's out, and going with that. Where Caleb Williams, I still think there's a little bit of maybe skepticism on how good he is, but he physically, the talent is there to do everything and put up those big numbers. And you ask yourself the question, is this guy capable of winning an MVP? You say, yeah. And what comes with MVP? Big fantasy numbers usually have to come with it, right? That's why you had Drake Maye and Matthew Stafford being the finalists and Stafford eventually winning. So that's how I look at it. I think he's just a guy that you're going to see evolve a little bit more. It's going to come down to numbers. I think career year wise, I think Williams would have a bigger year at his top, where Drake Maye might be steady for a long time to come here. So just a preference on what you want. There's a lot more volatility with Williams, but again, you get a nice cost where you can stack your team a little bit better instead of being lesser at other positions.
And steady certainly isn't bad. Like, I don't think anyone's going to draft May next year and be like super disappointed. It's just his draft cost is just, it's really high. So he's going to have to perform at least at the level he did this year, if not better, to come through with the cost you have, right? And Caleb Williams, he just has to do what he did last year, and you're going to be really happy with getting him at his cost. And if he gets better, then you're going to have a steal. So when we're comparing the two, that's the issue, right? I think May deserves to be ranked high, but Caleb Williams right now is looking like a great value. Now, you brought up another guy who's in tier 2 in consensus rankings right now, heading into 2026, ahead of Caleb Williams in tier 3. And he barely played this last season, but we saw him have a monster rookie year, and that's Jayden Daniels. So we'll get into his fantasy expectations for 2026. Are we willing to pay up for him again? We'll get into all of that right after a quick break.
All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by ZocDoc. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network, nearby, and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly to you. That kind of doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering more than 200 specialties from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. I'll admit it, I'm definitely putting off some appointments longer than I should between work, life, everything else. It's easy to delay. ZocDoc is going to make the process simple for you. You can search by specialty or symptoms and actually build a care team that works for you. You can also read verified patient reviews, so you feel confident choosing a doctor that you'll actually like. And whether you want to go in person or do a video visit, ZocDoc makes it easy either way. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to get and find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board, thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Now, not only can you pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on the NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Before we get into Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix and the rest of this 2024 quarterback class that's just absolutely loaded, I want to remind everybody to sign up for the Everydayer Club. You're already with us every day. We can give you ad-free shows Monday through Friday. It just has a little nice way to listen to our shows without having to have any interruptions, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the links in the notes to join the club. It's only $5 a month. So get over there and join to help us help you win your fantasy football leagues. All right, let's get into Jayden Daniels because I think he is one of the more interesting quarterbacks to rank for this upcoming season. We know he had a fantastic rookie season, right? And he went all the way up draft boards for 2025, drafted super early. And then just the season was so injury riddled that he never really got to get going. He missed 10 games this year and it was all over the place, right? Missed weeks 3 for 4 with a sprained knee, then missed week 8 with a hamstring injury, then missed weeks 10 through 13 with a dislocated elbow injury, came back in week 14, kind of re-injured that elbow and they just shut him down for the rest of the year. But on the year, it doesn't look pretty. It's 16.3 points per game, quarterback 17 on average. And that was after his rookie season where he averaged 20.9 points per game. I will say, though, from weeks 1 through 9, his first 6 starts, not counting that week 14 start where he came back and played just one game, got hurt in that game, he was averaging 18.6 points per game. So not what you needed from him with his cost, but it would have put him right with Caleb Williams and Jalen Hurts in average scoring. So it really, it wasn't as bad as people remember it to be, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. And then Marcus Mariota picked up the slack and had a few good fantasy games. I wouldn't say he was consistent, but he flashed a little bit there. The rub now is that Cliff Kingsbury is gone. And Cliff Kingsbury did have an effect on Jayden Daniels, that's for sure, and his running ability. But they stayed in the house with David Blau. You might have seen him start for some teams coming from Purdue into the NFL, but hard to believe he's already 30 years old, and now he's going to be an offensive coordinator. He was the quarterback's coach for Jayden Daniels, so there's some continuity there. Marcus Mariota is a free agent, so things could change behind him. Mariota might have bought him a bridge ticket out of town. We'll see. But with Jayden Daniels, I think that continuity is important. They're going to have some of the concepts. And they're not silly, right? They're going to know that this guy still needs to run. The running is not what got him hurt. And there's automatic comparisons to Robert Griffin III not being durable after a big rookie year. That happened all the way in 2012 here. So I don't think it's Robert Griffin III part 2. I mean, Jayden Daniels is a different personality. He's a different kind of vibe that he brings to the offense. It's a different era, even just 13, 14 years later, right? It's a different era of quarterbacking where you can do this. And the dual threats actually help you. not only in fantasy, but in reality as well. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about Jayden Daniels. I think they have some room potentially to upgrade their team with their offense. I think what you want to see is Deebo Samuel didn't work out, so let's add somebody else. Zach Ertz is ancient, and Ben Sinnott hasn't been there yet. So you need to add some weapons to Terry McLaurin here and reboot this a little bit, because I think this is where they're hurting. So they could target a receiver early in that draft, like a Jordan Tyson. They could go after the running back. They would also help Jayden Daniels with his running threat. Maybe Jeremiah Love comes in there. So the Commanders have some work to do. They got really old. They went a little all in with Jayden Daniels, hoping to win. They got close. I mean, they got close. They went to the NFC Championship, but then everything fell apart the very next year. Had to fire some coaches here. So, again, let's watch Jayden Daniels. But if they make a few right moves, they don't have to do a lot. I mean, tweak their offensive line a little bit, get some guys healthy up front, get a few more weapons, kind of settle on some guys here, and I think he'll be okay. The question is durability, but I think we'll know early, right? If he can stay on the field and look good early, then we know he's not going to have those things linger. So there's a lot of wait and see with Jayden Daniels, but all that being said, Michelle, I think he's a little expensive right now, just assuming everything's going to fall into place as QB5. I mean, Jackson Dart, Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts is as consistent as you get. And to take him behind or before those guys seems a little risky to me. But again, Jayden Daniels, I think a little too expensive, assuming too much, I think, with his health.
Yeah, and I don't even hate the price all that much at quarterback 5. Like, I could see him being a top 5 quarterback for sure next year. It's just, yeah, before Jalen Hurts, that's a tough pill to swallow because Hurts is so much safer, right? And I think they have the same ceiling. I mean, we've seen Hurts have a monster season. So, basically, if Daniels has a Jalen Hurts season, we're going to be really excited. So I probably would just stick with Jalen Hurts, even though it's not the exciting pick. Over Daniels. And then it comes down to, do you want to take Jayden Daniels at 5 or go with a guy like Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence or, a Dak Prescott later at 9, 10, 11? It's going to be a tough one. It's a very, very risky pick. Now, I could see him falling down a little bit as we go throughout the offseason, people remembering it could be risky with the injuries and, a change of OC. David Blau, cool. He was the quarterback coach, but he's never called plays. I mean, he just retired from the NFL 2 years ago. He's only been an NFL coach for 2 years. So we'll have to see what he can do. You brought up Zach Ertz. He's definitely, I mean, an ACL tear at his age, that's going to be hard to come back from.
He's done.
And then we'll see who they add at wide receiver, but he'll definitely be risky. Now, moving on to Bo Nix, I feel like we know exactly what he is. He was a quarterback 10 on average this past year at 17.9 points per game, a little bit lower than what he was his rookie season, quarterback 8, but he had a monster week 18 in that rookie season that we did say skewed his numbers. So it was basically the same thing he did from his rookie season to his sophomore season. I feel like he's exactly just a Jared Goff. I mean, they do it differently, but in terms of fantasy production, he's going to be a Jared Goff his whole career, where Nix might have fewer passing touchdowns than Goff, but he'll make up with it for his rushing, but he's always going to be around that 17, 18 points per game, have a lot of bad games, have some big games, mostly at home. Like this year, Bo Nix only had 5 games with at least 20 fantasy points. 4 of those 5 were at home. The other was in Indy in a dome. He had fewer than 16 points in 8 of 17 games played, 13 or fewer points in 6 games. And then the defense is just so good, and we don't see that changing for the Broncos to make him have to step up. So I feel like Bo Nix is just in that category with a Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield type, where you could draft him if you want late, but you're going to get a lot of bad games in there.
Yeah, right now, no one thinks highly of him in fantasy, despite being in the top 12 back-to-back years. I mean, which is somewhat of an accomplishment, but we also expect the scoring to be up overall among these quarterbacks. And when you look at his scoring, I mean, it's meh. It's around 18 points per game, and that's okay. But I think you can shoot for higher with that in this position and look for guys that can get you 20. Why are you going to settle for this when there's guys that are higher ceiling dudes all around him? I mean, it's interesting that he's right around Matthew Stafford, who's at QB 14. Don't forget about old man I guess he's kind of old man Mahomes at this point. He looks older and worn down, but he's still there. He's at QB 13. You have Brock Purdy, QB 12. You have Dak Prescott, QB 11. So these are all way more appealing. And you talked about Jared Goff. He's right there in that tier with him at QB 17. So Bo Nix is going to get done in a different way again with his legs and all that. Also, how many times is he going to defy the odds and pull off all these like crazy comebacks where he puts up all these numbers? Like, that's not a way to kind of get your fantasy numbers or your reality wins, right? Just don't play poorly early in games and struggle. Then now he's coming off the injury. Look, he was game, and you have to hand it to him in that game against Josh Allen in the playoffs. He was up for it, and he's a good gamer. But gamer is one thing. Putting up the fantasy numbers we're looking for consistently, week in, week out, and giving us a ceiling, that's a different thing. So, again, Bo Nix is the type of guy, again, he finishes high, but there's no one that said, oh, I was excited to play him. I won a championship with Bo Nix. There's no one who says that. He was fine, but are you settling for fine at quarterback? I don't think so. So don't go with Bo Nix. Again, 15 is fair to drop him that far despite the finishes.
Yeah, and even looking at the teams that he had big games against this year, it was like I said, most of them at home. And then at home, it was against the Bengals. It was against the Giants. It was against the Cowboys, the worst defenses in the league. And then a big game against the Packers in week 15 when Parsons was out. So I don't know. I just think that I really, if you want to take him with like your last pick, if your team is stacked, then maybe that's an option, but he does not excite me at all. But obviously in 2 quarterback leagues, he would be one of a very good option as your quarterback 2. We have 2 more guys to get to for the 2024 quarterback class. That's Michael Penix Jr. and J.J. McCarthy. Do they have any fantasy future, outlook that seems promising? Do they even have an NFL future that seems promising? We have to get to those 2 guys right after a quick break. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/locked-on. Actually, it's just turbotax.com/local to book your appointment to get today. Again, that's turbotax.com/local. All right, let's finish up today's show talking about Michael Penix Jr. and J.J. McCarthy. So Michael Penix is still, not got to start very many games in his career. Only 3 starts in his rookie season. Then he missed 8 games in his second year due to partially torn ACL in week 11. But before tearing that ACL, it wasn't a ton of great fantasy production. He was averaging just 13.4 points per game as a starter. That was a quarterback 36 on average. Not fantastic. He did have a few solid games in there, but a ton of terrible games as well. I just don't know. Like with Michael Penix, I don't even think I care about him as a quarterback 2 in 2 quarterback leagues all too much because he doesn't have the rushing upside, and that's definitely not going to come after a torn ACL. And the passing production just isn't enough to lean on him.
Yeah, and you're seeing some major change. We talked about Zach Robinson leaving. He actually was a good influence overall in this passing game with the weapons doing well with Drake London and then the Kyle Pitts eventual breakout that we wanted. We're waiting for. Now you basically get the Browns brain trust sliding over. You get Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees coming. Let's just say this. They were trying to make some art there in Cleveland, but they didn't have a lot of materials. Like there's nothing to paint with. So I can't tell you exactly what you're going to get. I guess we can just take away some of the things he might do well. I mean, but they didn't have weapons. You didn't really have a real quarterback solution with Shedeur Sanders. So they come over. It's an interesting concept thing that you're looking at. I think the biggest thing you take away, you're going to get tight end action, but is Kyle Pitts going to be re-signed? You would think bringing these two guys over from Cleveland, where David Njoku and Harold Fannin Jr. were essential parts, is going to be good for him. But the question is, hey, how does he respond now? There's no Kirk Cousins to turn your head around and watch for, right? I mean, Cousins, I thought they might keep him because Stefanski worked with Cousins in Minnesota, but that wasn't the case. They want to turn the page and go forward, really give Penix this opportunity. Look, if he isn't the guy, then they want to be able to dive right into the 2027 draft and find that guy. So, and there's not a total rule out here of signing a Malik Willis or going after somebody else in free agency, right? It's a contingency guy. Maybe Daniel Jones gets healthy. I don't know. That would be weird to have two guys with major injuries, but you never know what the Falcons are thinking. But right now, it stinks because you look at the line is pretty decent. Drake London is good. Kyle Pitts, we'll see if they resign. Not bad. You have, of course, one of the best running backs in the entire NFL, Bijan Robinson. So what's not there? Like, you need to see the results. He needs to be on the field and produce. And that injury, yeah, it's just going to make us shy away a little bit. So this is a make or break year. First thing Penix has to do is show up and stay healthy. Second thing, he has to put up some decent numbers and help this team kind of win some games that left on the table last year. And then we'll see about the fantasy. I think you're right. I mean, in the 2 QB leagues, you're looking in most leagues no more than 28 starters, 12 to 14 teams there, 24 to 28 starters. So is he in the last 4 starters right now? You would say probably, right? I mean, you'd say any uncertain person, but look, he's right down there with Bryce Young. Are you going to be all that excited to have him as your second QB? I don't know. So I think Penix, again, this is make or break. This is going to be a disaster for Atlanta because they took him. They had the Cousins contract. They got out of that. Now, if Penix doesn't come through, it's going to look really bad.
Yeah, and I don't know if he will. And I think he could be a better NFL quarterback than a fantasy quarterback, but I really just have no desire for Michael Penix with just a zero basically he offers as a rusher and then all the issues with passing as well. But let's talk about J.J. McCarthy because I think overall he could be a better fantasy quarterback than NFL quarterback, right? I mean, for the Vikings this year, he was atrocious. Everything he did was just really bad. 11 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a 72.6 passer rating, worst among qualified quarterbacks. If they stick with him, and who knows if they do, it depends on who they can get in free agency or trade. If they stick with him, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes in drafts, especially like in one quarterback drafts. I doubt he goes anywhere, but in Superflex 2 quarterback leagues, he probably should be considered. I mean, we saw some good fantasy games from him. We also saw some atrocious games from him, right? But a very injury riddled season. It was basically his rookie season because he missed the entire 2024 year with a knee injury. And then this year in his first real season, he had a high ankle sprain from weeks 3 through 8, missed week 13 with a concussion, got injured early in week 16 with a hand injury, missed week 17, and then comes back in week 18. But I don't know what to do with him because we did see some decent fantasy production in some games, and he has Justin Jefferson. Why? I don't know why he couldn't connect with him. But what are your thoughts on J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, we have to just say that he was a rookie last year. I mean, everything says that's true. I mean, he's thrown to the fire, tough situation. Sam Darnold had a good year, but they had to move on because they invested a high first round pick. Now, it's interesting. I didn't look at even where you had, or the consensus experts had Michael Penix ranked. Well, he's exactly where I said, 28th. Guess who was right in front of him? It's J.J. McCarthy at 27. Guess who's right ahead of them? It's Fernando Mendoza at 26. He's not even in the league, and people are more excited about what he could do with the Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty and the Clint Kubiak offense than what we have status quo with these guys. So, again, McCarthy at least is going to, I guess, stick with his coach here in Kevin O'Connell. So there's one thing. The team is a pretty good support system overall. I think they need to find a running back, but you can't complain about the receivers. I think Hawkinson's a bit washed as a tight end, so they need to get him or Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson going for him. So that's going to be the key here. And you liked him because it made a lot of sense. The Kevin O'Connell system has produced fantasy quarterbacks. You've had weapons, but the person has to execute. And that's where I would get really worried, because this is one of the better systems for a quarterback to be lifted and execute. And if he's not getting it done, you have a pretty good indication that he's not your guy. And they could bring in a Mac Jones or someone, Malik Willis, someone to maybe compete with McCarthy. I could easily see that here. So there's no guarantee that he'll even be the starting quarterback. So again, McCarthy's got to humble himself a little bit, realize he's not just walking in, strutting in, and making all these plays. If he can do that, develop a little bit, maybe we can look at him. But I don't think the Vikings or fantasy managers are going to have a very long look at him, right? If he starts to struggle out of the gate, he's done. And we actually want someone else there to help us, and not Max Brosmer, to help us get those guys unlocked. So hopefully they'll sign a contingency here where our weapons for the Vikings won't fall apart. That's what we want to see most, probably, instead of drafting or wanting McCarthy to do well.
Yeah, and I think the biggest issue with McCarthy is how little he was able to connect with Justin Jefferson, right? And I think this team obviously appreciates Jefferson more than McCarthy. So if Jefferson is like, I want a different quarterback, or I want to trade, I think they'd move on to a different quarterback. Absolutely. So we don't even know if he's going to start. If he does start, I would rather him just be a streaming option, or wait and see. Like, I think he has a potential with his legs and with his weapons, and we saw some big games, but overall way too risky, and he can't stay healthy either. So those are all risks. But those first four guys we talked about, great options, and Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, and Jayden Daniels in particular. Bo Nix, that kind of quarterback 10 through 12 option. These other last two guys, Michael Penix Jr. and J.J. McCarthy, probably just want to stay away from. That will be it for today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow talking about the 2024 running back class and their fantasy future. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Fantasy Football so you get all the latest episodes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Fantasy Football ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to join the club. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.